All right, all right. We're back for another episode of the Bad Ideas podcast with the one and only Paul Choi, managing director of ALG Atelier. Did I
Yeah,
pronounce it
yeah.
the right way?
I,
All right. Nice. It's too sophisticated for me. Now, this is exciting for me because you're a personal friend and mentor and like ultra talented human being. So I'd love
Thank you.
if you're up for it, kind of like talk the audience through your background. It's kind of an
Sure,
awesome story and some names that they know.
sure. I'm an accidental
Yeah.
ad executive. I was originally headed to medical school, did my undergrad at Stanford, and was going to be a doctor. Actually, I was going to be a plastic surgeon. Just a secret there.
Yeah.
My dad got sick. Didn't want to be a doctor. Smell of hospitals made me nauseous, and just happened to find myself in the fashion industry. I started working at Levi Strauss, and I guess my mix of left and right brain, or art and science, uh, made me a unique talent because I could talk with designers, but I can also understand business and work, basically was recruited into different brands to build brands. So I went from there to Ralph Lauren. Actually, I had a stop at a skateboard company called Deluxe, and then went to Ralph Lauren, worked on Double RL, and went and worked came back to Levi's and worked on their premium division, which was called Levi's XX. We did Levi's vintage clothing and launched a brand called Levi's Made and Crafted. And then I went to Filson and then went to Orvis, and I realized I helped build brands, but then I thought, maybe if I stepped on the other side, I could help other brands build and help more brands build if I switched over from the brand side to the agency side. And I had an opportunity to do that and moved over to an agency called Goods and Services. We created a branded commerce practice and incubated brands. In fact, we launched our own brand called Air by Sea, a men's apparel brand, and wanted to eat a little of our own cooking. And that's where I am. And I'm at ALG right now. I'm still, the reason I went to started ALG, it's part of ALG Digital, which is a boutique agency, mainly based in Mexico, because a lot of the brands that we were helping in our incubator couldn't afford US agencies because they're really expensive. So, I found that this agency had a lot of young talent, and combined with senior experience stateside with young talent that can produce and execute on the nearshore side, we could offer a really valuable, high quality product to brands at a fraction of the cost. And that's where I am.
It's an amazing story. I love the big names, and then I get to
Ah,
hang out with you. Both of those are fun.
ah.
Um, it'll be extra fun kind of talking through a bad idea with you too, because I'm sure you'll bring a lot of super
Well,
senior
I've had
conversations into this one.
plenty bad ideas in my
Yeah.
background, so I have a lot of practice.
All right. Well, so the format, just to review again, we'll review this bad idea. Then we'll exhaustively talk about all the reasons why it's horrible. I'm expecting an authentic Simon Cowell impression if you're up for it. And then we'll flip the script and try to make it good. Does that sound
Okay,
good? All right.
sounds like a plan.
All right, here we go. So without further ado, our bad idea for today. Oh God. It's a one arm sleeve shop. Half the sleeves, double the style.
One arm sleeve shop.
Yeah. So yeah,
Well,
I'm
I think
imagining it's like an apparel brand with one sleeve and I'm imagining like a muscle shirt on the other side. I don't know. Is that a thing that we
yeah,
could?
or basically caters to a very narrow population of one-armed men individuals. So
Yeah.
right off the bat, its customer base is probably too narrow to be very successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. When you've launched apparel brands, as we just discussed, when you launch a product, you have to do market sizing before you even think about running anything,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
there's got to
you
be,
look at the market opportunity, and obviously you're going to be a small fish in a market, but you want to make sure it's a growing market. It has room for new brands. So usually a larger growing market always has better room for new brands, but it can also be very tough for new brands to make a inroads into that market. I think the important thing is to make sure that you're differentiated. You just can't go in with like, oh, I have a cool brand. I like it.
Yeah.
And you go in because there's probably 1,000 other brands. I don't know if you've ever been to an apparel trade show like, the old big one was Magic, but there's Liberty Fairs, there's other shows. Um, there's a convention center in Las Vegas with hundreds and thousands of booths, all each a brand,
But
divided
but
by.
theirs is the coolest brand, Paul. Like they're the coolest brand, you
Yeah,
know?
but I mean, it's kind of like, what was that? When Harry Met Sally, where the Carrie Fisher says, everybody thinks they have good taste,
Hmm.
so everybody thinks they have a cool brand, but it might not be that cool.
Yeah.
So,
We definitely never want to be in that position. And also, no offense to the one-armed, population. I
oh
think
yeah,
they
for
they
sure,
deserve
for sure.
fashion too. But at the same time, it's a very small. I don't think it's explosive. Um, a rapid
Definitely not.
growing one-armed population. So we have a market sizing deficiency. What about from a fashion perspective? Is there any way? Because there's that whole like ultra hipster thing that's like it's super
Well,
high fashion, but also weird. Does one arm
yeah,
fit
no, I mean,
there?
I think as an isolated concept garment or a little capsule of concept garments, it could be curious and interesting. The whole,
Really?
like, well, Michael Jackson had his glove, right, on just one arm. The whole concept of asymmetry in design and apparel design is cool. The left and right side don't always have to match. In fact, when they do, it looks kind of weird. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when you're missing an arm, it's kind of limiting in wearability. So let's just look at it not so much as a customer base, but wearability.
Hmm.
If you're going to work and you're missing one of your arms, it's not the best thing. If it's cold outside, a jacket with one arm is not very useful.
Mhm.
Um, if it's sunny outside and you're wearing a sun protection garment, a one-arm sun protection garment is probably not very useful. Uh, but I think from an, aesthetic look guide, I think your direct competition are people who have garments that just cut off the sleeve. So it's easy for people to basically, like, I could just suddenly say, hey, I'm just going to cut off my sleeve here and
Yeah.
have a cool one-armed garment look.
So in summary, what we're saying is there's a really, really small niche market. There's no intrinsic value to this. And what it does runs in contra to the value like a typical garment would have in most of these categories. So we're kind of like torpedoing. I mean, the only slightly positive thing we've come up with about this is that it's interesting, which serves our interest because we're making a show about it. But beyond making a show about it, like interesting isn't enough to run a product line, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the key things when you develop a brand, especially in apparel or accessories, is that you want the ability to position yourself sharply, but be able to cut a wide swath. So I think one-armed garments really kind of definitely focus your positioning,
Uh,
but you can't really take that across lanes. I mean, do you suddenly do one-legged shorts? Do you do like, one-eyed glasses?
yeah,
Do you
it's a
do,
patch. It's a pirate look,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe you can kind of alternate left, right, left. I think from an operational perspective, SKU management, every style will have to be double because you have to do a lefty and a righty, unless you decide you feel strongly about righties versus lefties or vice versa.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's a mess all the way around.
Can you teach us a little bit? I mean, you said it earlier. Forgive me if I'm misremembering
Yeah.
the phrase, but you said you want what was it, a specific approach, but a wide swath? What was the phrase?
Yeah,
You want to?
I just got, let me just make sure it just zapped me out. Oh, there you are.
No, I got
Why it just changed screens on me. So yeah, so you want to have basically the layman's term is you want to have a point of view
Mm-hmm.
and be able to carry that point of view across a wide range of products or people or segments. So, for example, Ralph Lauren,
Mm-hmm.
brand people may have heard of in the past. His whole thing was, you know, he used to sit on his stoop in the Bronx and watch Imagine Life in the movies. Do you know what I mean? And romanticize the look and like Hollywood actors and how they looked. And so the whole idea of Ralph Lauren is that he creates clothes that enable people to elevate their viewpoint on their lives. And, you know, the whole polo horse. I mean, I don't know anybody who plays polo. I've met a couple people who play polo, but I wouldn't count them friends. He never played polo, obviously, but polo intimates this whole life of, you know, Hamptons,
Mm-hmm.
country clubs, you know, and basically it's aspirational in a way that resonates with a lot of people. And so that point of view can cut across men's, women's, kids, you know, sportswear, formal wear, shoes. That's why that brand resonates so well. And I think sometimes when a brand is too narrow, and I'm trying to think of examples, but nothing is coming to mind because they probably just never made it. But all the big brands, you know, they are able to figure out a way where they can take their point of view and spread it across a range of products. When they can't do that, then they suddenly become, or they gradually become irrelevant. And I think, you know, when you think about the Gap, you know, it used to be about essentials and basics, but then when people, and that had the amazing ability to kind of go across all these categories. But then when the essential point of view became less interesting, people got tired of basics. How do you overcome that without you become your success becomes your enemy?
Mm-hmm.
Because how am I going to suddenly say I'm a fashion forward brand when I've always been about basics? You know, it's kind of like
Yeah, you can't pivot.
yeah, it's kind of like Toyota suddenly coming out and saying we're going to offer you luxury cars. No, they couldn't do that. They had to create a new brand. They called it
Mm-hmm.
Lexus, and then they could
Mm-hmm.
offer
Yeah.
luxury cars. I don't think they could ever have been as successful if they launched all their Lexuses under the Toyota brand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think, you know, that's what I meant by like it's your point of view and being able to have a sharp point of view, that can cut across horizontally a lot of zones. I think that's critical. I think having a point of view for the sake of having a point of view is kind of like having a one-armed clothing company. You know what I mean?
There we go.
Like, I think maybe there are a few cults of personalities that can get away with that, you know, just by being themselves. But then their whole personality is their point of view. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge of brands, and then the challenge of brands and how they stay relevant is key, because you know when you look at a brand like Allbirds, which just hit everything gangbusters, sustainable, unbranded, great customer experience, like all these amazing dynamics, but then when you've had your second or third pair, do you feel like you were going to buy clothing from Allbirds? You know, they're expanding categories, so it becomes challenging. How do you expand in those other categories in as relevant or a compelling way, um, to attract the customers you had for the footwear? Now, I think Allbirds was more of a, I mean, they're still a very big company, so I'm not going to, I hope I don't get in trouble for calling them out, but, you know, they were so successful. Like, I think during the pandemic, I think 3 out of 4 friends ordered a pair of Allbirds. You know, it was crazy. It was crazy how they are. And so whenever something gets that big, that fast, you know this, they can get small or stop being relevant just as quickly. So,
Yeah.
so you got to be able to be like Madonna, you know, be able to reinvent yourself and be able to come back on the scene and Vogue, you know? I think,
Yeah.
what was it? Yeah, she came out with Vogue. Like that was her first kind of, after like Material Girl, suddenly she was like, let's Vogue. And she totally changed her image, but she was still Madonna, and I think she tried to do country at one time as well. So sometimes it works,
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. But it's really fascinating to talk through from a brand perspective, because I think one of the struggles entrepreneurs have a lot is everyone's like, pick a niche, who's your ICP, get more focused. And when you're fundraising or just getting your business going, you want to aim at the biggest market you can because you want to believe that what you're building can be massive. And I think it's hard to think in two dimensions at the same time, which you just explained really, really well. Like you can have a unique and specific perspective, but you can cut it across a wide variety of people and products. And, um, that needs to be a part of every accelerator program. Like you need to talk about your niche, but also talk about, how
Yeah.
you can multiply the service or product value. Um, and it can be
Yeah. And
both.
I think that's critical, because I think sometimes, uh, what is it kind of, you think, okay, I'm starting a brand. If I hit all the points that the experts tell me,
Yeah.
then I'm going to be successful. It's kind of like eliminating the risk. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Um, so a dynamic that I always like, I'm Korean American, first generation, born in the US. Koreans came here, and I bet there was like some family that opened a dry cleaners that was very successful. And so then every other family said, well, if I work hard and open a dry cleaner, I can be just successful and realize the American dream, or a bodega, or whatever other business. Like it seems like every Korean family has somebody who has opened one.
Uh-huh.
The whole idea here is I don't risk anything because it's something that works. All I have to do is just do it, and then it will be successful because Mr. Kim, Mr. Choi, Mr. Lee, all these are Mrs. Kim, Mrs. Lee, or Miss Ree, or Miss Peck.
Yeah.
They did this and they were successful. So why can't I be just as successful, or I will be just as successful if I work hard enough? And
Mhm.
I think to a certain extent that is true, but when something gets saturated, the greatest opportunities are when you're a contrarian. You can't be so contrarian that your opportunity is useless, right? So I think it's always kind of like anything, timing.
Was that deliberate? Were you walking us right back to the one arm shirt? I mean, that was
Yeah.
perfect. It's like you can't be so unique that you destroy your opportunity, which these guys are clearly trying to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think my grandfathers, so my great grandparents they're Italian, like off the boat from Italy, and they opened a restaurant like every other Italian family because that's what we do. We cook. Um, I think the restaurant's still operating actually, but not involved in the family anymore. So definitely can relate to the proven model piece. Um, but I think even outside of families, there's been so much venture activity the last decade. A lot of that's happening in the startup community where like you come up with an idea, you get one big name VC to sponsor you, you go raise a bunch of money from a bunch of other people. Um, you find a target, less experienced private equity firm to target your exit. You sell for a meager multiple, and then you go do it again. And you have these people just like raising money for the sake of raising money. And then you run into what we have in the last couple of years where like, hey, a lot of this value is not real. So let's reset.
Oh
And
yeah,
people are
and
trying to get back
because
to God.
especially in technology where it's all new and it's hard
Yeah.
to vet legitimacy,
Yeah.
based on potential, like AI, everybody's like, oh, the concept of AI is fantastic. Like it'll do this, it'll do this. The machine will just take care of that stuff. Like I can just make the machine make my assortment. You know what I mean? And the problem is, I was just listening to some podcast from Tortoise, Walter's World, where basically, you know, this guy is a con man and created a story for himself that he was a British military nobility / whatever, and he did a startup that basically was going to develop AI technology for the military, you
Jeez.
know? And, and I think they called it the Rebellion technologies based on, Star Wars. Um, and the problem is they had terrible data and the engine underneath it, like they had the people in place, they had the great storytellers and marketing, and they had investors who had come in, like Steve Schmidt, whatever it is, Eric Schmidt from Google was an investor. So all of a sudden, like anybody's saying, like, well, if he's in it, so
It's
it's
huge.
like a name game. It's
Mhm.
and there and you can't vet the substance and the real existence of it because it's a new technology, And I think like what you said, that dynamic happening in Silicon Valley and technology in general is there's a lot of shysters and
Copycats.
yeah, I mean, look at crypto.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of hot air that's supporting these big balloons that just are ready to pop, and you just
Mhm.
like the less savvy, get burnt, while the sneaky folks kind of cash out and zip out
And move
before the
on.
bubble bursts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What they don't realize is they're kind of delaying the bigger opportunity, which is more transparency. I think everyone wants that.
Well, the problem is technology could advance. Like
Mm.
it suddenly like reaction is that people are much more hesitant to develop or invest, and it just kind of curtails the actual advancement of whatever the medium is.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, hopefully, we're moving past that. Um, I was
I know a good
thinking,
name for this brand,
yeah. What do you got?
righty.
Interesting.
Just kidding. Or lefty.
Both of those are political. Can't do it.
Yeah, I know,
Can't.
I know. So maybe you can launch two brands.
And oppose.
The righty has more conservative stuff, and the lefty has more avant-garde stuff.
That's how we know this is a terrible idea. We have to resort to tribalism to sell anything. Um, I think yeah, interesting. There's some political strategist that's like, there's something here. Um, how do we make this good? Let's imagine we're the advisory board for this company and we're trying to help them turn it into something good. The first, can I throw it? This is a bad idea because I know you have a good one, and I'm sick of you
Uh-huh.
being so smart. But bad idea. What if the sleevelessness is optional? Does that suddenly make this more viable?
Yeah, I mean, my solution was actually kind of along those lines. I think what if they made it sleeveless and you can attach different types of sleeves based on what you like? So you buy the garments separate. So you can buy a gray shirt, but then you can buy a red sleeve and a green sleeve, right, left sleeve. You can basically create your own garments. Like, let's say I want to make a jacket. I want to buy a jacket. I buy the vest. I can wear it as a vest, but then I can add sleeves. And on the right sleeve, I can have an extra pocket for stuff, and the left sleeve doesn't have a pocket, or vice versa. Or I can make this sleeve green and green sleeve, but the body blue, or, you can basically it's kind of like a Lego version of clothing, for your top. So your shirts, etc. You'd have to figure out how to be able to attach and detach stuff easily. So it doesn't look bulky, because you don't want, extra bulk, and you want things to kind of stay where they are. I think the positives of the business are that people can basically make clothes last. Like, hey, I ripped the sleeve, doesn't mean I have to throw out the whole jacket. I can just go back and buy another right sleeve,
There you go.
or I
Also,
can reuse my sleeves to create a look. So like you you create the look.
you have like two bodies and then like a bunch of different sleeves, so people don't think you're wearing the same thing every day. Um,
Or if it's you live in San Francisco and the weather is highly transitional, where it's cold in the morning,
mhm.
warm during the middle of the day when the sun comes out, and then cold again, you can switch from long sleeves to short sleeves and back.
Optionality.
Yeah.
I was also thinking there's probably significant price advantages in the marketing of this because you're marking up the sleeves individually for
Hmm.
the options. So for like a complete outfit, you're probably charging quite a bit more than people would pay for one garment. But a question back to you on the production side, like it's got to be significantly more expensive to produce, right? Or is there
No,
any?
I mean, each item it's just when you look at it holistically, it's more expensive. So, for example, if you made a shirt, a woven shirt, making a single shirt is the same amount of fabric as if you made the sleeves detachable, right?
Mhm.
But you're going to have separate make costs of the attachment portion.
Mhm.
I don't think it's that significant. I think the issue is SKU management and production management. Like, you know, if you're starting out and you want to get some kind of economies of scale, a factory is going to say, I need to make at least 1,000 or whatever the number is, and suddenly it's like, I'm going to make 1,000 right sleeves in these different lengths, and suddenly that sleeve just nobody likes the right sleeve with the green pocket. You got a lot of extra sleeves on your hands. Now, the other thing you can do is the other advantage you have is there are so many people out there with short arms, long arms versus their body. Tall people with really long arms or short torsos. They can customize their fits so that their sleeves always match their bodies. That could
Mhm.
be an advantage. But from a production standpoint, you know, if you think about it and sit down, you can always figure out a way, but inherently looking at the overall make, the only additional make is figuring out how to make the extra attachment to the sleeves to the garment.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And making
interesting.
that uniform.
So you could have a significant price advantage then if it's only marginally more expensive.
Well, I
Um,
think I think the price advantage comes in with you can have 10 shirts with just changing the sleeves.
mhm.
You can have a short sleeve shirt, a long sleeve shirt. So you have two shirts for the price of one and a half. Do you know what I mean? Or one and a
Well,
quarter.
to the end, I mean, that's what's beautiful about your idea. Like to the customer, they're spending less for more options,
Hmm.
but for the brand, they're selling less for a lot more money, right? Because you
Yeah,
pay for the
yeah,
body and then they
exactly. I
pay for
mean,
the
because you
sleeves.
you probably price up the sleeves because you have a
Yeah.
captured market. You know what I mean? It's a lower price point and higher turn, so you could probably get more sales. They might not want to buy another jacket, but since they got the vest, they might buy some sleeves. You know, and it's like I could see like the email marketing: buy a lefty, get the righty at half off. You know what I mean? You can kind of two for one, literally. You know?
Interesting. Yeah, that's super interesting. I think we talk about this a little bit more in the recent episodes, but I think the mission of the podcast overall is to show people that like, ideas are fun and there's nothing. I mean, I'm the king of bad ideas. That's where this whole thing came from in the first place. But um, ideas are a lot of fun, but it's really the execution that makes the business. Um, and what's fun about conversations like this, particularly with someone as experienced as you, um, is showing people how you look at something and just change it a little bit to turn it into like a big plan that can turn into a real business. And I'm not saying you and I are going to start a modular, clothing company tomorrow, but just through a half an hour conversation here, we've taken something completely ridiculous with no addressable market, and through some inspiration from you and some molding, turned it into something with a production line, an addressable market, a pricing strategy, optionality, like a lot of very very key value points that could make a business. And that's yeah, that's part of my personal mission. I think you can kind of make anything really good if you just tweak it a little bit, and you have Paul Choi in your corner. Um, so
Well, I think
that's the key.
like good ideas need experience and also execution.
Mm-hmm.
So you need people who know what the hell they're doing and then realize what you don't know
Mm-hmm.
and get expertise in for that. Because I do think in some cases, certain expertise, if it's not flexible and the expert is not flexible in their mindset, they might give you expertise, but they only know how to do things one way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not very helpful. I think because you don't want to make, like everybody says, you learn from your mistakes, but the difference is you can learn from 2 or 3 mistakes or make so many mistakes you never get off the ground and you fail.
Yeah.
So I think execution is important, but getting the right type of expertise in the room with you and recognizing that you need it.
Hmm.
If I wanted to start a game development company, I had an amazing idea for a game. I wouldn't try to learn how to code it or program it.
Yeah.
And then I would also understand how the market works and distribute. Just today, just yesterday, actually, I was talking to somebody, one of the brands we did creative work, repackaging for. It's actually a Mexican seltzer brand, and all their flavors are based on fruits endemic to a specific region, like tangerines from this region, Monterey, or you know, limes and lemons from this region, and they actually use those to add the flavors, and they're the strongest flavors of local regions. And it's an interest, it's obviously got a story. It's got a very strong marketability with the Latin American or Latin communities. It's basically in Mexico. But the challenge of them coming to the United States is that I reached out to an expert. He said, the way distribution for beverages is, it's so complicated and complex that you can't expect, you have to go local and expand. Like that's how I would recommend to this company. I go, why? He goes, so Buckhead's a neighborhood in here. Like you could have 10 stores in Buckhead and you could have 4 different distributors, that each specific store works with only them. And I was like, and I've heard stories about how like selling beer, for example, there's kind of like the people who distribute have some kind of amazing control, to get licensed to be able to sell and ship, so it's a complicated thing, and you can have a great product, but get just destroyed because you didn't have a understanding of some operational uniqueness or idiosyncrasy, because better than anyone, most of the world does not work logically. Like operations don't work logically. Things kind of evolved as workarounds. And when you have a bunch of evolved workarounds, it's very entangled and lacks any kind of overarching logic or system. So, so I think
sounds like a good business idea. Systematize the workarounds.
Isn't that it? Like another workaround was used API, basically, is what that is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming on. I learn something every single time we talk, and I think a lot of people are going to learn a lot from this conversation. This is definitely one of the best we've ever done.
Oh, cool.
Super grateful.
I hope so. And then, just if you need branding strategy or creative design or any kind of content work, ALG Atelier.
Yeah, and they can find you on LinkedIn or website.
Find me on LinkedIn, Paul Choi. They'll recognize me from my hair and glasses. I'm wearing the same hair and glasses in my photo profile.
Really good ideas. Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate it.
See ya. Talk soon.